Could I interview you for a minute or so?
Not right now.
Don't film me, no videos.
These videos were taken in Hosier Lane, a Melbourne laneway that you are legally allowed to paint in. In fact, according to the Melbourne government, it is establishing a protocol with the Victoria Police that people placing graffiti or street art in Hosier and Rutledge Lane will not be subject to prosecution. So if these artists painting in a legal area aren't in danger of prosecution, why is their anonymity so important? To answer that question, we have to go back to the early 1980s. In 1982, social scientists James Q. Wilson and George L. Kelling co-authored the broken window theory. The basic idea was if you crack down on quality of life crimes such as graffiti, jaywalking, littering, there would be a decrease in serious crime, kind of like murder.
The next mayor of New York must get control of the money spent in our school system.
In 1983, Ed Koch, inspired by this broken window theory, was cracking down on graffiti and trying to clean up the city.
Well, it is one of the quality of life offenses. It's like a three-card Monte, pickpocketing, graffiti defacing public and private walls. They're all in the same area of destroying our lifestyle, and I think has to be responded to.
Republican Rudy Giuliani further ensured this theory's popularity after he was elected mayor in 1993.
That's the real Rudy.
Rudy Giuliani for mayor.
He heavily adhered to the broken window theory, and as a result, 1990s New York saw an unprecedented crackdown on misdemeanors, which included graffiti. Giuliani justified these arrests, saying, obviously murder and graffiti are two vastly different crimes, but they are part of the same continuum. In a climate that tolerates one is more likely to tolerate the other. Regardless if this was an effective crime reduction technique, the intense crackdown on the misdemeanors, and thus the graffiti community, made anonymity integral to the art form, as the repercussions for a loss of anonymity meant arrest, and sometimes prison. Although anonymity was initially utilized to evade prosecution, even the early days of graffiti saw anonymity ingrained into the style and purpose of the art form.
One of the best graffiti writers lives around here. Writes Scene.
What is it?
S-E-E-N.
That's his name?
Yes, that's what he writes.
Or is it a nom de plume?
It's a nom de plume.
You wouldn't tell me his real name.
No.
Why not?
The goal of this early graffiti was to get your word up everywhere you could. And through doing these tags, bombs, throw-ups, and pieces, artists gained this contradictory sort of fame. Most writers desired an anonymous notoriety, and it didn't matter if the layman could decipher the underground code.
It's a matter of bombing, knowing that I can do it, Every time I get in the train, almost every day I see my name, I say, yeah, you know what, I was there, I bombed it. It's for me and other graffiti writers that we can read it. All these other people who don't write, they're excluded, I don't care about them.
As the years passed and graffiti became more and more complex, there started to be two distinct branches: traditional calligraphic graffiti and something more pictorial. This became the phenomenon known as street art.
This hybrid form of graffiti was driven by a new generation using stickers, stencils, posters and sculptures to make their mark by any means necessary.
And the stringent anonymity prevalent within the graffiti community transferred to the street art community, with street artists like Banksy and Space Invader choosing to preserve the anonymity and live through their pseudonyms. If a pseudonym erodes, the physical person is revealed, and their street art loses that integral component that differentiates the medium: anonymity. Shepard Fairey is an example of the erosion of a pseudonym. Shedding the anonymity of his early career, Shepard Fairey designed the iconic Hope poster for the former President of the United States, Barack Obama. And if the President of the United States approves of you and your work, you have undeniably entered the mainstream.
Yes!
Fairey fell further into the mainstream by plastering most of his art on mass-produced tees, sweatshirts, pants, hats, and just a whole bunch of other stuff. Street art has its roots in counterculture, in rebellion, and to fully embrace that culture, anonymity is key because it helps you completely avoid the mainstream. Anonymity and street art form a cohesive rejection of an oppressive bureaucratic system and instate anarchist equality on the street. That equality being that the walls of the city are a shared canvas for us all to paint on. When Shepard Fairey left his anonymity, He also left the rebellion infused within street art. He left that legal gray area where street art flourishes, where it was born. Ferry needed an artificial infusion of this rebelliousness. The only way to regrow his rebel roots, destroyed by being in the mainstream for so long, was for him to blatantly defy the law, which he did.
Shepard Fairey's latest and biggest masterpiece sits smack dab in the heart of Detroit's revitalization zone, the massive mural on display for the world to see. But it's this smaller artwork that interests police. Fairey's signature Andre the Giant plastered throughout the city. In a recent interview with me, the street artist hinted something was to come.
You'll just have to keep your eyes peeled.
But what may be of more interest is the repercussions for his defiance. Ferry was arrested and prosecuted and appeared before a judge. But according to the Detroit News, the charges were completely dropped against Ferry. So one might ask, how can Ferry get away with defacing an entire city? These charges were most likely dropped because cities, like Detroit, now know the economic value that street art can bring to a community. So the art form is no longer highly scrutinized by police and the judicial system. In Melbourne, Hosier Lane, a shrine to street art, is the #1 place of interest on TripAdvisor. So systematic acceptance of street art makes financial sense to the city as it brings tourism dollars to Melbourne. In Melbourne, street art is becoming increasingly accepted within city legislation, and some street artists have noticed the change.
Also, would you say that Melbourne is more lax when it comes to street artists?
Yep. Hasn't always been, man, it's taken a good 20, 30 years.
Yeah, for it to be accepted.
The amount of money the council spends on cleaning up, they've realised they're never going to beat it. They're either going to fucking try and work with it, or it's just going to continue to cost them money.
Yeah.
So we come back to our question, why anonymity? Yes, anonymity still serves to protect the artist, but I don't think that is its most important purpose. Anonymity is less a protective shield and more of a stylistic choice. Anonymity has the unique ability to separate an idea from the flesh it originates. The idea is no longer attached to a gender, race, sexual orientation, or creed. Its only attachment is humanity, something we all have in common. In that way, the idea becomes something more accessible, something more pure, something immortal.
Hey guys, I just finished editing. It's a little bit different from what I normally do, but I hope you liked it anyway. If you liked it, drop a like. If you want to give me any feedback, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, I'll see you in a little bit.